raw power, precision design, flawless finishes, stunning interiors. It doesn't get much better than a custom wooden boat. Only a handful of these sparkling dream machines are built each year, and each has to navigate the rocky waters between design and delivery. It's a tough journey, but one that results in the creation of a one-of-a-kind marine masterpiece. We're headed to Boyne City, Michigan, to see how one man's dream and a stack of wood becomes a moving work of art on American Craftsmen. I'm Steve Thomas, and I'm in northern Michigan in Boyne City on Lake Charlevoix. It boasts miles of spectacular shoreline, great resorts, and stunning scenery everywhere you look. Boyne City is also home to some of America's finest craftsmen and one of the country's preeminent boat builders. Steve Van Dam has always believed that hard work and passion lead to perfection. And that's exactly what he and his talented team of designers, engineers, and craftsmen have done over the past 30 years. By marrying modern design technology and materials with centuries-old woodcraft tradition, Steve and his crew are able to manufacture one-of-a-kind works of art. To see how they do it, we've journeyed here to Van Dam Woodcraft in Boyne City, Michigan, where Steve and his craftsmen are getting started on their next big project. A classically inspired, custom 30-foot speedboat commissioned by Bill Gage of Gage Marine in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, for one of his clients. As we walk through the Van Dam offices with Steve and his wife, Jean, it's easy to sense the passion Steve has for his work and realize the legacy he's created as one of America's truly great craftsmen. So we're going to build a boat.
That's right.
And this boat is a combination of a real old-fashioned look with the latest in technology, both in terms of its design, its underwater design, and in terms of its engines and controls and so on.
That has become a specialty of ours. And, you know, one of the key players for us, and you're going to meet him, is Michel. And he's our designer, and he's responsible for just that.
For more than 15 years, Steve has relied on the artistic skills of Michel Berrier. In this case, modifying an earlier design of his from a boat named Theodora to create a new boat for Bill Gage's client. The most significant of these modifications is the addition of a rear seating area, which necessitates widening the hull.
That's what the boat's going to look like, essentially, when she's done. You can see right through here, the motors are spread apart so we can walk between them. In Theodora's motors, you could not get between them. There's only about 6 inches between the manifolds.
But this boat has more room.
A lot more room.
Holds more people.
Yes. That's really the driving factor, is that they really wanted to be able to walk through those motors.
Michel sets us up with what we call mylars, and these are essentially just cuts through the boat at given stations, and this is what we end up building all our frames from.
They can take my information and they can start cutting wood.
And you can't make a wooden boat without wood. Multiple species, including mahogany, cedar, and spruce, go into one of these beauties, and lots of it.
Wow, look at that.
But before it gets cut, it's got to be sorted, tested, glued up, cleaned up, and planed. Nearly 1,000 board feet of wood will go into this boat, and every inch of it gets the same attention to detail. With the wood prepped, Ben Van Dam, Steve's son, gets us started.
Right now I'm just laying out the frames now on the piece of sepal that we milled up a minute ago. So I'm just going along and tracing all my templates on here. I traced 2 of each template because we got a port and a starboard. And from here I'll just go ahead and cut them out and cut them out a little bit big. We'll be making 19 frames, and there's 4 pieces per frame. So 76 pieces altogether will be laid out on these boards.
All of those pieces that have been cut and rough sanded now need to be fine-tuned in order to work. When you're building these frames, they have to be absolutely precise.
That's exactly right.
These lines are
1/64 of an inch, somewhere in there.
and you want to get them dead on the line.
We try and keep our frames as close to these lines as we can, knowing that once we get it up in there, if we line everything up perfectly on all our marks, we'll have very little fairing to do. Basically
Fairing means sanding it so it's
that's
smooth.
exactly, shaping it so that it is actually smooth like it is in the drawing.
Okay, let's build one. Each edge and each joint of every one of those 76 pieces requires that its dimensions match the specified design.
Take a little lick there, and another one right through there.
Adjustments are made with planes, saws, and sanders until each is perfect.
You could call that.
Yeah.
You could call that good.
It's well within.
You know, I could take one swipe at that.
See?
I know.
There you go, perfectionist. Yeah.
Some quick touch-ups, and the pieces are set.
So now you're ready to screw all this together?
We're ready to screw this all together, yep. So from here.
Plywood reinforcements, or cheek plates, are screwed to each joint. This will hold the frame together until all 19 of the boat's frames can be glued up at once.
We're gonna stand it up, and we're gonna switch sides and lay it right back down.
The process is repeated on the back, and some temporary bracing is added.
This one's ready to go on this side. This is essentially a frame that's ready to go to glue.
But if these aren't right, the boat's not right.
That's exactly right, so it's well worth the time.
When all the frames are completed, the boat will quickly begin its transformation from 2 dimensions to 3.
The blend of what we do, you know, we're making art, so we've got some artistry involved, but it's artistry that's not static, it's very dynamic, it's something that's used. Because it's used, there's a certain engineering factor that comes into that. You know, we want to design something that's beautiful, but it has to be very structural, it has to take a lot of abuse. So it is a give and take. There's a push and a pull, you know, to make them look good. Then you bring the craftsmen into that picture. They're their own master at what they're doing. They're the ones that are checking the quality, the structure of what they're doing. They're the ones that got to make sure it looks good, you know, when it's done, the way they shape a curve, a piece, whatever. It's all those little details that make it fall into place. So the craftsman's the key element in marrying that art and that engineering and making it happen.
Now that the 19 frames are ready, they're attached to a custom jig epoxied to the shop floor. One by one they go in and are set to exacting detail. These frames become the skeleton of the boat, to which the outer skin will be attached. So it's critical they be constructed and assembled as precisely as possible. Build is placed in the hands of project manager Chad James.
We're starting to set these large longitudinals that you see here are our main stringers for the hull side and the bottom structure. You start to get some curvature going in these stringers. So what we've got to do is match the bevel of this stringer into the plywood notch in here. So it's quite a jigsaw puzzle getting these together sometimes. Certain things have to be up, other things have to be left out for the time being, and then we'll slide them in afterwards.
Every joint in the puzzle is checked and rechecked.
So it's got to go deeper yet. It's an 1 9/16 store. 1 9/16 down.
Each notch and groove is worked until it's exact. And when it is, they take it all apart to begin final assembly with glue. The boat has finally come off the page and is taking shape. But there are still dozens of pieces that must be individually fabricated and fitted before the hull frame construction is complete, requiring hundreds of man-hours of work to achieve. With every piece, the classic lines of the runabouts from decades ago begin to take shape. But there are still months of work to go before she's ready for the water. With the boat's construction underway, we're off to Wisconsin to compare our new design with those from the past. Bill Gage, who commissioned the 30-foot runabout for a Chicago family, is a third-generation marina owner on Lake Geneva, known in the Roaring '20s as the Newport of the West. But after the era of steamboats and trains, Lake Geneva began its decades-long tradition for speedboats. One of these boats in particular, originally designed by John Hacker in the 1950s, inspired our new design.
So here in the showroom, you've got some fiberglass boats, and they're okay, but this old Woody really stands out.
Yeah, this is one of the very originals that goes back to the late 50s and early 60s.
So this was a partnership between your family and John Hacker.
It was the last project he did before he died. You know, John was considered basically the dean of American boat building.
You got a lot of flair in the bow, so it makes it nice and dry, but it gives it a great look. And then you got these controls, the steering wheel, the dials. It's so retro. And it reminds me of my parents' old 57 Chevy station wagon.
And you want to be in that too, don't you?
I do. And the engine, I bet, sounds just perfect, right?
It purrs. There's a special noise to an inboard engine that people love.
Let's get to work. We got to build one of these things.
Okay.
Except better.
With the framing complete and just 20 weeks to delivery, Ben Van Dam takes me through the process of resawing cedar boards into bottom planking, the key to a sound hull.
We want to keep the width of the board, but we don't want it, you know, 1.5 inches thick. We're going to go ahead and take it down into planking thickness, which would be about 7/16 of an inch right now. And then this is our feed motor right there. Right here. That's exactly right. Ready to go? Go ahead and start that.
The Alaskan yellow cedar cuts like butter.
It's easy. By nice tools, I'll hand it to you there.
Each of the raw boards is cut and recut till the slices are near final dimension.
What do you have to do additionally to it? Well, from here, you know, it's got a lot of kind of fur sticking up on it. Yeah. From here, we'll take it through our thickness planer to bring it to the right thickness for us, and then it's ready for us to use in a boat.
Originally, I wanted to sail around the world. I mean, my interest, first as a young man, when I started sailing, I just dreamed of far-off places. And that kind of led me into thinking, well, I want to build my own boat to do that. And that's really was the start. It's just this wanderlust and thinking I would build my own boat. And now I do it for a living. I get a lot of pleasure out of seeing these projects come together. I mean, that's really what we do it for, the sense of accomplishment when you turn a pile of boards like we have all around us into something beautiful. That has become the stronger drive than really that wanderlust.
The Van Dam crew makes short work of measuring and installing the first of 3 bottom layers. The beauty of Michelle's design is further revealed with each stage of construction.
You spend so much time looking at something through a little screen about this big, and you're rolling it around, and you're sighting down one side, sighting down another side, but you know you can only do so much with a computer screen. It's at the end of the day, it's just a picture on a tube. So when you get a chance to walk around this thing in real life, it's very rewarding.
I think there's just something very deep in everybody's soul. It's just that tree that we've made into something beautiful and a natural product, and it's, you know, it's not something we're taking out of a bottle or a beaker or something like that. It's we're going out into the woods, a tree's getting cut, it's turned into just a beautiful thing.
Steve Van Dam has spent more than 30 years crafting wood. The building technique he's using on this boat is known in the trade as cold molding.
What Chad is doing right here is we're fitting on the first layer on the side. He's got a couple here. He's working in that direction.
And these all get fit.
Yep, keep
And then
just
the
marching
final layer,
across.
I can see a piece of mahogany around here.
This is something typical of what we'd do. We'd start with a plank like this, and because this is a varnished boat, we're going to run this 4 1/2. So we'll actually come back and we'll cut this mahogany to match the center line of the stringer like this, and it'll follow. You can see how the stringers are all laid out to follow the shear, and they taper at the ends. So we're going to match that to those stringers, and then that'll be our finished surface.
Cool. These are ripped out of plywood. You take a 4x8 sheet of plywood, you just rip them down to 8 inches.
Yeah.
And then you got to fit them edge to edge.
Because of the compound bend that these planks are in, they do take some edge fitting to make sure that everything fits.
So even though it's going to appear like a straight line, this is actually going to be a wiggly line.
That's right.
How do you get the wiggly line right?
You start with your raw plank and you just hold it up there, and by eye, you're just judging. I have a very small 30-second gap down here at the bottom, and I have the same up here at the top. I'm nice and tight here in the middle. It's actually down about the 2/3 range, and that's quite typical because of the flare being more drastic up towards the shear. And then just with a block plane, I'm just going to start to spile this shape of the plank next to it into this plank.
You happy with that, or you want it tighter? I want it tighter.
Yeah, I would go just a skosh more.
Skosh.
One more.
Smidge.
So this seems like it's inconsequential. And I think for the average person to try to understand what's going on here. We just happen to have an orange and a knife. So, make straight cuts, right? Straight. And unfold it. That straight cut becomes curved.
That's right.
So you're doing the same thing in reverse on the boat.
Yeah, yeah.
After the boards are fit and temporarily tacked in place, they're marked and removed before gluing. Construction is well underway, but Chad is soon sidetracked by a project that has been hounding Steve over the last year. A stunning boat the Van Dam shop built named Gonzo that is yet to be delivered. Its engines leaking oil upon arrival.
And unfortunately, Chad, you know, that's the project leader for our 30, is also the project leader for this boat. So now we've got problems. He's got to drop that project, come over here, you know, and work on these engines, and it's just been a headache.
A headache that Steve hopes will soon go away. A few days later, Chad is happy to be back from his Gonzo detour to complete the gluing of the planks. Thickened epoxy is used to attach them to the hull. Next comes a coat of epoxy on the bottom and a second layer of cedar placed nearly perpendicular to the first. A third layer receives the same treatment. The result? The bottom of the boat now being roughly an inch thick and incredibly strong. The dressed mahogany, the wood that these timeless classics sport so well, now goes on to the visible areas of the hull. One of the more crucial parts of the boat's finish is done once the mahogany is on. Sanding, and lots of it. This stage is critical to the final look of the boat. The deep red stain goes on, followed by coat after coat of the epoxy-based finish. With the hull now done, the boat is near the point where she'll be rolled upright, a critical milestone. With months of work to go, Van Dam's team needs to stay on schedule. Though hopefully the boat's nearing the last time anyone will see her upside down. To get her upright, holes are drilled for temporary mounts. So this is a pivot point. Bring in some gantries. Jack it up.
Yeah, and just roll around.
Bill Gage has come in from Wisconsin to watch the ingenious yet simple process that Van Dam uses to roll their boats using mobile gantries and strapping. Though nowhere near her final weight, she's already nearly 2,000 pounds, and turning her over is done with great care. To see it upside down is a way you'll never see the boat again. To see the pure form of the hull is really cool. And this is that magic moment when it turns from an abstract construction project to a boat. Man, this is cool. This is really cool. The bunk's little cradle her is slid into place, and she's delicately lowered. And with that, hopefully, she's now forever upright. Now that it's flipped over in 3 dimensions, it really is a boat.
It's becoming more real. You know, it was just drawings and pieces of paper and looking at other projects that we've done.
So have the customers been involved at all, or?
Yeah, I've been talking with John and Bob pretty consistently on it.
Now, they have decisions to make, right? I mean, we're on a timeline here.
They're going to have to start making the hard decisions on where they want everything to go, so.
From Steve Van Dam's perspective, you've got to make those decisions as soon as possible so they can continue working.
Yeah, Steve would prefer that yesterday.
Work on a 30-foot gauge hacker is slowed to a crawl. Steve Van Dam is waiting for decisions on its interior configuration. One element of the construction process that has been able to proceed is the metalwork, which was started weeks ago by Jesse Brown. In addition to this boat, he's crafting several restoration pieces for other Van Dam projects, including this vintage shifter. So this is what you got.
The guy would send us a couple pictures and
a blueprint.
yeah, and a blueprint, and I have to go from there.
Fire it up. Let's see what it does. Jesse uses classic metalworking tools to shape raw stainless steel, bronze, brass, and aluminum. What's next?
I'm going to be welding the threaded rod on the end because this will get a wooden knob, and this will actually be bent 90 degrees, probably about like that.
And so the handwork begins. So this is cool. You've bent it, you've rounded the edges, you've got a radius on the end that connects to the actual shift mechanism. Now time for a little welding. An electric welder is used to join the pieces of stainless steel. A tricky job to do right, but something Jesse makes look simple.
So the next step is to clean it up, polish it, put the wood knob on, and you're done.
And like that, the past has come to life.
It's very cool.
It really is.
Gonzo, whose leaking engines have been rebuilt and need to be reinstalled, continues to complicate Steve's build. Putting it back in the boat is not trivial.
No, this is like 50 to 60 man-hours to get these reinstalled, everything put all back together and ready to water test.
It's gonna work.
It's gonna work, yep.
Gonna work. A week after the Gonzo delay, Steve finally gets some good news. The interior design on the 30-foot project has been approved, and construction can now resume. The build team has made up incredible time with the deck and interior components. Trevor Brazel, the man in charge of the beautiful finishes, hand applies the epoxy finish base coat, just as weeks earlier with the hull. With the deck complete on the Gauge boat, Trevor begins mixing the components for the high-performance spray finish. Barely visible through the fog, he'll spray the first 3 of its 9 coats today. Trevor has transformed the look of the boat. There will be 6 more coats to be applied before it's good enough for Van Dam.
Steve is a perfectionist on a level that most people could never possibly consider. I mean, it's never, yep, that looks good, but there's that but. You know what I mean? There's always that but. We could do this differently. We could do that differently. What if we tried this? You know, no matter how good it looks, yeah, good enough is not good enough.
Another critical milestone is reached as our boat finally earns her name. The words Sempre Avanti, Italian for ever forward, are hand-lettered to the stern by Ralph Ferriulo. A coat of sizing is then applied to the outlines, followed by gold leaf when they become tacky. Chad and Ken take a cue from the name and move ever forward on the installation of Sempre Avanti's power plants.
We changed transmissions on this project, which raised the engines up an inch in the air. And we had to change our mount location. Ken made a custom bracket that actually offsets the engine mount to somewhere we can actually grab onto it.
The ever-present gantries are brought in to lift the twin 300-horsepower engines into place. The first engine goes into the freshly sprayed hull with relative ease and is set on the custom fabricated brackets. The second engine is placed just as easily. Steve seems rather pleased with their progress. As the engines are secured, the pleasure is short-lived. It becomes apparent the powertrains are not sitting as planned.
We're running dangerously close into not only the bottom, but our coupler here as well. Design changes along the way can certainly be frustrating. You've started an interior and halfway down the line you find out, such as in this boat, we changed the transmissions.
We are low on the mounts, aren't we?
Yeah, we are low on the mounts, yep.
We'd be better off to buy new plates. Am I thinking right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we could make a new plate.
That's right.
And bring this whole giz up a little bit so that we could have that. That would be easier than knocking the mounts off and redoing that again, because that'll be a major pain in the neck.
We've got to now adjust our engine mounts. We've got to cut bigger holes that we've already finished. That means that our finisher has to come back and touch up the varnish that he's already done. Those can be a headache at times.
There's barely time for Ralph to finish the name before Sempre Avanti, whose engines have been removed to make the transmission fix, is rubbed out, remasked, and resprayed. During the next week, while the finish cures, various pieces are rough fit and the engines are reinstalled, all just in time to sand her once again before the final finish goes on. And while she's not finished, she's finished in the paint room, so in come the gantries to carefully lift her onto a temporary trailer.
We're trying to just make sure we don't make a teeter-totter out of it.
Now weighing well over 2 tons, she's pulled out into the sunshine, where her spectacular mahogany finish glows in the light for the first time. Her trip is less than 150 feet before it's right back inside.
It's time to take the boat around to another room where we can set up and spread out our mechanical gear and get ready for that installation.
The final phase of her construction is about to begin. Bill Gage has come in from Wisconsin to update Sempravante's status for his client, the boat's owner-to-be.
It's really exciting to have something come to life. And it's actually some of the little things that I just noticed on this when you get in the sunlight and you just see that warm glow of the wood, and you just know that that's why it's there. It's something that's beautiful, but you can touch it and use it. You don't even have to be an expert to just realize this is something special. If you look at good sculpture, look at old cars, look at great old homes, things that are built by hand that can't just be mass-produced, I believe will always have a value and appreciation for almost anyone.
With only weeks to go before Bill Gage needs Sempravante delivered, Steve knows the team is up against the clock. All the interior components, the wiring, exhaust, flooring systems, and fittings still need to be installed before she can be started and float tested. There are still dozens of details to attend to before testing, things that have kept Steve Van Dam up nights.
We've got some last-minute things to do on the boat. Sitting here thinking through my calculations. Are those lifting eyes really strong enough when we pick that up and take it out over the water? I'm thinking, man, that'd be a horrible catastrophe if the boat dropped right in front of everybody. So those are the little things that I dwell on.
The last of the fittings are installed, and she's ready to be lifted onto her newly arrived custom trailer.
Are you ready to go with this? Let's just see what happens.
We've never had it on the trailer before, which is another slight concern. Everything should work out. But we shall see.
Always that chance.
That's right.
The lift points hold firm, and once again, she's up in the air. But this time, she'll land on her custom-made trailer.
So when you ask what can go wrong, Steve, obviously this is one thing. The trailer doesn't fit.
It's right on.
Well, one crisis averted. It fit. Yeah. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
This trailer costs more than my boat.
Sempravante's custom trailer is hooked up so she can be fueled and started for the first time. Dustin Mervelt, the engine manufacturer's rep, is on hand to help program and calibrate the boat's engines and high-tech controls. All eyes are glued to the process. Armed with nothing more than paper towels and a screwdriver, trapped air is vented through a release valve. About 20 minutes later, it seems as though the last of the air is out.
There it is.
Dustin, these motors of yours are going to just, fire up within seconds, right?
They should. We've purged most of the air, probably 95% of the air from the fuel rail. It may stumble at first, but it's going to smooth right out. And
Guaranteed?
Guaranteed.
You buying the beer if it doesn't?
Sure.
That's the beer! That's the beer! That's the beer!
Heard that.
That could be lunch. Lunch could be next.
No?
Really?
Please.
Yeah, go. All right.
With meals secured for all, half a dozen attempts later, the engine finally breathes to life. Next, the port engine is fired up with much less struggle. With the cooling system verified and the custom machined propellers checked, Steve is anxious to get her in the water.
Each one of these are my babies.
Yeah. How late were you up last night going over the calculation?
I never sleep the night before lunch.
Really?
No. There's a lot of pride in these. There's a lot of satisfaction in seeing something that essentially you've created out of your mind come to life like this.
I'm hearing this beating noise, which is your heart settling down.
No, I'd say we're good.
You got away with another one.
Yeah, this is what we wanted.
She's just about dead even, it looks like, Michelle.
Okay, good.
He's regaining the colors in his face.
Yeah, the blood is coming back into the rest of my body here.
No, we're looking real good, actually.
Oh, good.
Once the engines are warmed up and the systems are double checked, Steve will put her through her paces. It doesn't take long to get the sense of what a truly incredible machine this is. She rides like a dream. She turns on a dime. And she's fast. But the real proof of her capabilities will have to wait until tomorrow, as the water's getting too rough for accurate testing, and the day is getting long. Yesterday was a great day. We launched the boat for the first time. She didn't sink. She floated on her lines, the engines teched out, the propellers checked out, the rudders worked great, and we hit 50 miles an hour. All well and good. But today, we were supposed to launch the boat again and develop one of these. It's called a speed versus engine RPM graph. And what that needs is a series of speed runs calibrated by GPS in flat, calm water in good weather. And that ain't gonna happen today.
The weather is not going to cooperate, so I think let's just change our plans. We were hoping to go in, but...
Not one to let bad weather stop progress, Steve Van Dam shifts gears and has the crew reinstall a windscreen he was unhappy with, the gasket having not sealed properly. This attention to detail is the driving force for his crew in these last few days before Bill Gage returns to sign off on the boat's delivery.
Ideas for this boat started to gel right after we did their 26, 18 months ago, and we just had lots of conversations, back and forth discussions, drawings that went back and forth, altered, and then construction, and of course, particularly in the interior, fine-tuning that the way that Bill would like to have it, and the culmination is where we are today. I think we got a great product for them, and hopefully the final end customer is going to feel exactly the way we do, which I think they will.
Sempre Avante glows in Boyne City's morning sun. Today, Bill Gage comes in from Wisconsin to sign off on her completion.
The night before, you're always thinking of the little things you might have forgotten or the little details that aren't absolutely perfect. But once we get out here and we get the boat on the water and go out and use it, they all fall into place.
Steve makes it sound easy, but nothing just falls into place, even after more than 30 years in the trade. Sempre Avante is a masterpiece. After nearly 7 months of work, his final test run gives Steve just a few moments alone with the boat to enjoy the fruits of labor. And even then, he really just wants to be sure it's right. With a decades-old tradition of Gage Hacker boats to live up to, Bill arrives to ensure that Sempre Avante wears the name well. Steve is fairly certain that it may be the best ever, but it all comes down to this.
We've talked about the boat so much, and we've looked at plans, pictures, we've discussed things, and still that first time you go in the water, you never know.
Just gonna open it up.
Michelle, you did it again. That's my feel.
I think it met his expectations, which is the real key.
I love it. Love it.
Steve and his team of craftsmen have pulled it off.
Such a nice feel. I mean, it feels substantial. Let me put it that way.
We got a boat that we did for him before, a different boat, different kind of boat, and that rode so well. We wanted this one to match those expectations, and I think we accomplished that. I think he obviously felt the same way, so that's great.
I think Bob and John had some big smiles on their faces.
In preparation for the boat's final delivery, Steve worries about the possibility of poor weather for tomorrow morning's drive.
Well, what's the issue? It is a boat, after all. We've got it all buffed and shined and everything, so we want that first impression to be good when they see it. And you know, we can clean it there, but we've already spent hours getting it all cleaned up, and then we'd have to do it all over again when I get there. So.
And what's the issue of covering it?
The issue of covering it, of course, is just the risk of any damage to the boat, you know, especially with shrink wrap. You know, we've done it enough. I mean, we're good at it. We know how to do it, but there's still always that risk there. I go through these mental gymnastics, do we not? And I just decided, you know what, I want to sleep tonight because we're leaving early in the morning, so we're going to shrink wrap it. And then we don't have to worry about the weather, we don't have to worry about the bugs, and we know we're going to get there, it's going to be pristine.
Blowtorch in hand, the process of wrapping the boat begins.
Do you get nervous?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I'd be really nervous.
Again, this is how you strip varnish. This has the potential to take the finish straight off the boat.
So what's the secret?
The heat starts it moving, but when it cools is when it shrinks. So you just don't keep pouring heat on it.
So you don't overheat it?
You don't overheat it. And that's the secret.
All that awaits her now is tomorrow's journey. Like many expectant deliveries, Sempre Avantes begins well before dawn. It'll take about 10 hours and cover 450 miles to travel the northern route around Lake Michigan on her way to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, just northwest of Chicago. Night turns to day. The Sempre Avante makes her way to the interstate, where she'll soon cross one of Michigan's most recognized landmarks, the Mackinac Bridge. The more than mile-long suspension bridge connects the upper and lower peninsulas in Michigan. Her custom trailer is making the journey an easy one as she rolls hundreds of feet in the air above the water, just 8 hours from her much-anticipated launch. Now, driving in daylight for the next 8 hours en route to Lake Geneva, there's not much to do except watch the remaining 400 miles roll by. But with 160 miles to go, a moment no one could anticipate. The trailer gives out, forcing Sempre Avante to the side of the road.
Yep, we are in deep shit. Well, so much for the delivery today. That won't happen.
All right, we got a big problem here. We broke an axle. We thought it was a flat tire, and I'm sitting in the cab, and I'm saying, aren't you glad that you put a lug wrench in there?
Yeah, I know.
But it's more than just a flat tire. We broke the whole axle. So we're basically screwed.
The first thing that came through my mind is, uh-oh, we ain't gonna make it for this scheduled launch. We'll be lucky if we get there by dark.
Just 160 miles from her new home in Lake Geneva, with launch party waiting, Sempre Avante is hobbled by the side of the freeway. A number of calls later, it appears help is on the way.
I mean, we're still never gonna make the party.
Making the party is probably wishful thinking. Getting there at all today is still in question. And it could be a while before that is known.
What did they say about the wrecker, Steve? He's on his way. Okay. He's gonna bring some tools and jacks and stuff with him.
Hope for just getting there is now at hand. Kevin Pashka quickly sizes up the options and devises a plan. The broken axle will be chained to the trailer's undercarriage, but just to get it off the freeway. The overriding fear? The boat's entire weight resting on just one good axle.
Had it been a single axle, the way those wheels are splayed like that, it would have sent the trailer in the weeds and it would have probably pitched the boat right off. So we're lucky. We're lucky.
With the help of the county sheriff, Sempre Avante limps her way off the freeway to be loaded onto a flatbed trailer so she might complete the drive.
These guys are really well organized, I have to say. We called them about an hour and a half ago. Guy came out, he was there in a half hour. Boom, got the thing jacked up, we got off the highway. I'm pretty impressed, aren't you?
We may be there in time yet. Let's see. Well, we might be a little late for the party, but not too bad, all things considered.
Let's keep our fingers.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
With the trailer wheels hanging off the flatbed, all 3.5 tons of Sempre Avante continue the remaining journey, with Steve Van Dam keeping a close eye the whole way. With daylight still remaining, she makes her much anticipated arrival.
Not the way we planned to deliver her.
No, but she's here. One piece, safe and sound. That's what counts.
That's what counts.
And no damage except to pride, huh?
Yeah.
Guys?
Well, so
we made it.
So did you think that we'd be delivering her
Well, you know,
on a flatbed?
I see a few extra wheels than we were anticipating, guys. But most importantly, the boat is here, and she looks perfect.
As she's hooked to the lift, the long and treacherous ride is finally over.
All right, we good?
As soon as that baby just gently touches the water, I can go. The heart can slow down about 100 beats. I'm looking forward to seeing it unwrapped, safe and sound.
Yeah, and in the new owner's hands.
And in the new owner's hands. That's exactly right, Steve.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here. How are you?
It's nice for us to be here, too.
You know, it was nice to spend a day.
Should rename her just in time. Or by the skin of her teeth.
Yeah.
So tell me about the name.
Sempre Avanti actually comes from my father's service in the United States Army. He was in the 10th Mountain Division, which was the ski troops that served in Italy. And the name Sempre Avanti means ever forward, which was the motto of the 10th Mountain Division. So my brother and I, at the same time, in different places, came up with the name.
Really?
Yeah, and there's no better name for it.
We look forward to this day for a long time.
This is like having a baby. You know, like I said, you wait for a long time, you talk all this stuff through, and then finally it's here.
This is a lot of fun. The client seems happy, and so we're just excited to get her in the water.
And as she's unwrapped, everyone is taken with her incredible beauty.
Well, the exterior of this is actually all African mahogany. Pretty much the whole exterior of this boat is, and then we deal with the colors are dealt with.
Steve proudly shares construction details, and the new owner begins to appreciate the artistry involved with this level of craftsmanship.
Looks like this, or works like
Never
a good
seen
boat
anything
builder.
like it.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous
Gorgeous.
stuff.
It's like it's like furniture. A piece of gorgeous furniture.
To my father, I raise a glass. Cent'anni. Sempre avanti.
Sempre Avanti is finally lowered into Lake Geneva, her home, quite possibly, for generations.
Okay, let's go over there. Just keep going. Sounds good. Oh, yeah.
So how does it feel to watch the boat getting turned over to the owners? Honestly.
One part is relief. One part is sad to see the baby leave. And one part is nitpicking ourselves to death and thinking, oh man, I see something wrong here, I see something wrong there, and oh, we got to do this better and that better. So that's the disease I have, and Michelle has, and most of our crew has. It's never quite good enough, even though it's practically perfect.
Exceeded all very, very high expectations.
There's nothing left but to show everyone what she's made of. As with every delivery, Steve has an overwhelming sense of relief that he and his team have exceeded all expectations. An accomplishment, considering the past several months of scheduling conflicts and design adjustments.
In one sense, it is relief because the project's done. There's always time pressures at the end, and of course, we had a lot of last-minute glitches getting it there. It's like having one of your kids move away. You know, when the boat's gone, you come home and the house is empty, and you kind of think, oh, this is different. So you get some of that feeling. But, you know, we're the kind of group that's always thinking about the next project we're going to work on, and we start moving into that phase.
Like all true craftsmen chasing perfection, Steve Van Dam looks ever forward to one day achieving it. I'm Steve Thomas, and thanks for watching American Craftsmen.